We're talking more about the pet problem in this week's Ask the Landlord segment. We're joined with Jennifer Rulins, co-founder and vice president of Fish Property Management this week. And we're talking a little bit what it means to have a service animal. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start by talking about the no pets. If a landlord says no pets, but a tenant gets a note from a doctor saying this pet's important, it's a service animal, what do you do in that case?
Well, it's a really hot topic right now. And what we're talking about is the Americans with Disability Act, or ADA, and then how that actually works in rentals. So folks who are disabled, who are actually disabled as defined by the Act, are permitted to make reasonable accommodation requests to a landlord to have an animal if it serves them in their disability. There are a couple different kinds of service animals. There are ones that help with physical disabilities like epilepsy or vision impairment, and there's ones that help with mental health disabilities, so things like autism or anxiety. And so it's really important when we talk about this to use the right terms. Service animals, emotional therapy animals, and emotional support animals are all the same thing under ADA, so don't get confused by that. The other is that service animals and pets are very, very different, and we should never call them the same thing.
Okay, absolutely. And so then how do you request a reasonable accommodation?
Well, a reasonable accommodation would be made by making a formal written request to your landlord. I am requesting under ADA a reasonable accommodation request to have an animal despite your no pet policy. And I'm doing that because I am disabled and that animal services me in that disability. So what the landlord's going to do is say, okay, great, I need some documentation. Any documentation, if the disability isn't visually apparent, that you are in fact disabled, from a qualified caregiver or doctor, and then also documentation saying that this animal or animals services you in that disability. So there has to be that nexus, that link.
Okay, so if you're not getting a doctor's note and said you find a certificate or a license online saying that your animal is a service animal, does that qualify?
So what qualifies is what your landlord takes, quite honestly. But if your landlord knows their rights and knows that you can ask for that documentation to be from a relevant caregiver, that's somebody who actually does provide care for you and knows your case, then those online certificates and licenses aren't worth anything. And my personal opinion is that they're a scam. They really prey on people who don't understand the system.
Okay, and what if you're not sure if your animal qualifies?
Well, if you're not sure, you're going to want to research ADA and then put into a search engine HUD, service animal, and guidance. And that'll get you the most recent guidance on what HUD says the process should be. You could talk to your doctor a little bit about your animal and how that actually provides help with your disability. The most important thing to remember is just don't abuse or manipulate the system. I mean, this system and these laws were fought for many years by folks with disabilities, and they need them to be able to access public services and spaces. And so we shouldn't commit for any kind of fraud in order to get our pets into places where they're not welcome.
Very good advice. And Jennifer, where can we go if we want to get more information?
Well, there's a page on my website at www.fishpm.com/askalandlord, so you can see old segments and submit your questions.
I love it. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.